What's going on, lads and lasses? Welcome back to 100% Mag. So in today's video I'm going to talk about, of course, the recent news regarding Dan Cashworth, of course, and what he's been up to. Once again, he has once again made himself look like an absolute fool. This time, of course, Mark Douglas reporting on it, saying that Dan Cashworth, of course, held meeting at Wolves. Now, we have heard from other sources that, of course, what he was doing at Wolves was not related to, of course, his son who was on the books at Wolves. It was something else. And according to what was said, is that he was speaking to the sporting director apparently at Wolves. But there is talk that he was also having talks apparently with Gary O'Neill, who was at Wolves as well. But this guy just seems to constantly make himself look like an absolute fool, and really does start to make you wonder, is he really as smart as they say he is? This guy is meant to be the man responsible for the England DNA, setting up England to what we see now, with Gareth Southgate set up, the youth players coming through the England setup as well these days. And this guy, Dan Cashworth, is meant to be the one, that set that all up. And it's pretty hard to believe, when you see what he's done, being Newcastle United sporting director, coming in from Brighton. He said that he was going to be the cog in the wheel, and then we never seen him really do anything. He was never, really heard of doing anything at the club. And then, of course, we see the news that he's been having conversations, private conversations with Omar Barada of Manchester City. He's having private conversations with Ratcliffe of Man U, and there's a whole behind closed doors meetings going on between all three of them, and both of them, Omar Barada and Dan Cashworth, shouldn't even be talking to Ratcliffe because they're actually employed by their clubs, Man City and, of course, my team, Newcastle United. But at the end of the day, you're looking at this and you're wondering, what are these people up to? What are these people doing? Can these people be trusted? And clearly, looking at the news that's coming in, every time we see something mentioned about Dan Cashworth, at the end of the day, he's not a guy that can be trusted. He's definitely not. He's doing a lot of dodgy things behind the scenes, and I'm glad to see that he is on garden leave. He will not be involved in this club anymore moving forward. And we're seeing reports that Man U are saying they're sticking to their valuation of around 3 million for him. We all know, that there is a 20 mil release clause in there. We're seeing Mike McGrath saying that, Munoz saying they will not be held to ransom over the compensation demands of 15 million. Well, it's actually not 15 million, it's 20 million, and it's contractual. At the end of the day, it's a binding contract. It's in there, and you've got to pay it whether you like it or not. That's the way business goes. So if you don't want to pay the 20 million, then just move along, because we're not lowering the valuation. Newcastle's not going to lower that valuation down, just to suit an agenda with somebody, because they clearly don't understand how business works. But at the end of the day, this guy's just keep making himself look even dumber every time, he comes out and is mentioned in the media. He's making himself look dumber every single time with these bits of news coming out. But let us know your thoughts about that, of course, down in the comments below. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit as well about some transfer news in this video. So, of course, we've seen reports from quite a few different sources saying that Newcastle are willing to listen to offers for Matty Targett this summer. The 28-year-old is currently on a reported 100 grand a week, according to Newcastle World's Charlie Bennett. Plenty of PL interest in Matty Targett, of course, but his pay packet a clear obstacle for potential suitors, of course, with that 100 grand a week being an obvious blocker for anybody that is wanting to bring him in. So I'm guessing there will be some sort of deal that Newcastle will be able to maybe, work up to get Matty Target off the books. I mean, that 100 grand could easily be spent elsewhere on a player that is going to get game time at Newcastle. I mean, Matty Target hasn't really gotten that much game time of late since coming in on a permanent deal. So, I would like to see the club taking that money that he is getting and, putting it into a better area, putting it into a player that is actually going to benefit the club moving forward. But I'm sure, we will see something like that done in the coming months, and also we have seen reports of players on the move out of Newcastle, or being reported to move out in Newcastle. And of course, I was watching Loaded Mag last night, their episode with Keith Downey on, and he was saying that, of course, given how much Eddie Howe likes Longstaff, it would be a surprise to see him leave this summer despite interest. He is on the list of players who could be sold. Of course, that is what Keith Downey was saying on Loaded Mag. He was saying that, of course, Sean Longstaff is on the list of players that could be sold in this window. He's already been linked with a 15 million move to Leicester City. I think if we could get a little bit more around the 20 mil mark, maybe for Longstaff, I think, Newcastle United would be tempted at moving him on. Obviously, at one point we were getting under Rafa Benitez here, we were getting a 50 million offer from Man United for him, but I don't see we're getting anywhere near that evaluation these days. Longstaff doesn't seem to be the same player that he was back then. He has lost a little bit of his talent, and his mind seems to be a little bit elsewhere as well. He suffers, of course, from mental health problems, which we all know, but at the end of the day, he does need to try and figure out a way of getting past that and focusing a little bit more on his game, getting himself back into a fit shape, to get his career back on track as well. He was doing some good stuff last season. At times, he was showing some promise at times in games, but then, we were seeing him in other games where he just wasn't putting the passes right. His mind wasn't in the game. At times as well, you could see, he was half asleep at times when the ball was being passed to him. But I think he will be one of the players that will move on. Like Keith Downey said, I think he will be a player that does actually move on from Newcastle this season. I think it is probably time, unfortunately, for him to do that, because we can, use that extra room to get some more players in that are going to help, improve the team going forward. He will be, unfortunately, one of the people, that will end up moving on, just like Almiron is being mentioned as well, to move on. At the end of the day, Eddie Howe said it himself, we can't be sentimental on this. We've got to allow for players that, some of them may not want to see move on, to improve the team. The likes of course, Longstaff, the likes of Almiron, the likes of course, Wilson. We need to see some of these players going off the books, going elsewhere, and freeing up that wage bill, freeing up money for to be able to spend on improvements to the team, because we need to be thinking about, of course, improving the team and moving forward. We cannot be sentimental, and I fully agree with Eddie Howe, on that when he said that as well. We cannot be sentimental. We're not going to get where we want to be if we are sentimental about certain players. At the end of the day, these players will leave the club, but they will still be respected for what they did for the team whilst they were here. At the end of the day, they've played their heart out for this team, and they will be remembered and respected for that. You know, no matter where they go, they will be respected for what they've done for this team moving forward. And another player that is a little bit of a funny one, to be honest. It's a player that my brother told us to scout on Football Manager 24. It was Osame Diamande, a player that we are actually linked with now, of Sporting Lisbon. Now, this player, I've got to say, yes, I know it is Football Manager, and I think I've probably said this before when mentioning this player, but this lad was absolutely fantastic on that game. You know, he was absolutely fantastic. And let's not forget, it might be a game, but look at the managers that have used Football Manager, Championship Manager, you know, to be able to scout their players. Look at Arsene Wenger. He even came out in the press when he was a manager and said that he had used Championship Manager for quite some many years to go out and scout players. You know, so there is credibility behind it. You know, it's not just a game. And of course, a lot of the world's scouting system is used by Football Manager. Some of the greatest scouts out there right now use Football Manager as their way to identify how good a player is. You know, the stats of the player as well. And I've got a small little screenshot, of course, of some stats that are from FBref, of course, of what Osame Diamande can do. You know, just have a look at that, and you can see, you know, he's got some fantastic stats, and he really is a fantastic player. Some of the similar players that he's close to as well, the likes of Pepe in Porto, Struck at Leeds, Vestergaard at Leicester, Antonio Silva, somebody that has been linked with Newcastle, Benfica, of course, Ignacio of Sporting Lisbon as well. So, you know, he's quite similar to them players. He is a good player, and I would, you know, like to see him join Newcastle United. It would be a really good signing for moving forward. And he is a centre-back as well, somebody that we are looking to bring in. We are looking to bring in a centre-back, preferably a centre-back that can play on the right side, of course, because that is an area that we are looking to improve, of course, with Fabian Shaw ageing now and getting to the latter end of his career. Then, you know, we do need to have a right-sided centre-back coming in that is mobile, can play the football sort of like Fabian Shaw, being able to get up the pitch at times when he is needed to get up there, of course, and somebody that can be quick enough so that he isn't caught out against the speedier players in the Premier League and in Europe. You know, we do need somebody that's going to be quick on their feet and able to defend well as well. But let us know your thoughts anyway down in the comments below. Till next time, I'll see you all for the next one. However, that's